So, how does a group of individuals become a real team? It's more than just working together. It's a journey, often through struggle and growth to find success. Today, we're going to explore that exact journey through the incredible true story of a team that completely changed the definition of what it means to win.
It all starts right here, with this feeling. A dream come true for Siang Soan. She was the captain of Cambodia's first ever national women's wheelchair basketball team. And this trip to the Asian Paragames was the culmination of a journey that, honestly, most of us can't even begin to imagine. Because that dream put her and her team on a massive stage. We're talking about the 2018 Asian Paragames, where they were competing alongside 3,000 other athletes. Now, for a brand new team that had never, ever competed internationally before, well, the stakes just felt impossibly high. This is the story of that team, the Battambang Roses, and their dream of a lifetime, stepping onto the court for their first ever international competition. And really, at the absolute heart of their journey is the story of their captain, Siang Soan. To truly understand this team, you first have to understand her. Her path was, well, it was forged in tragedy. When she was just 11 years old, she was hit by a stray bullet during street fighting in her hometown. It damaged her spine and her life was changed forever. The years that followed were just filled with struggle, until she discovered wheelchair basketball. And in that sport, she found a powerful new purpose. And Siang herself talks about this time with such raw honesty. She admits she had these dark thoughts, this deep anger, and felt completely alone. But it was right there, in that place of isolation, that her incredible transformation really began. The turning point, the catalyst. It was a single, powerful moment. After someone introduced her to the sport, she scored her very first basket. And in that second, she felt a sense of achievement she had never known before. A fire was lit. So, fueled by this new passion, Siang took on the huge challenge of forging a team from scratch. But this brings up a fundamental question that every single leader has to face. Right? How do you take a group of completely different people, each with their own unique histories and their own struggles, and turn them into a single cohesive unit? It's one of the biggest challenges there is, in sports, in business, in life. Well, it turns out there's a really powerful framework for understanding this exact process. It comes from psychologist Bruce Tuckman, and it's called the 5 stages of group development. We're going to use this model as a kind of lens to see exactly what the Battambang Roses went through. And the roadmap is pretty straightforward. It goes like this: forming, storming, norming, performing, and finally, mourning. What's amazing is that nearly every successful team follows this path, and the Roses' story just illustrates it brilliantly. Okay, so it all kicks off with stage 1, forming. For Siang, this meant going out and recruiting women who were dealing with poverty and disability. I mean, most of them had never even held a basketball before. So you can imagine there was this initial excitement, but it was mixed with a whole lot of anxiety about whether this could even work. And then came what's often the hardest part: storming. As the women started figuring out their roles on the team, friction was inevitable. Siang has admitted there were fights, there was jealousy, and honestly, this is the stage where so many teams just completely fall apart. But Siang's leadership was the glue that held them all together. With these powerful words, she reminded them of their shared struggle and their shared strength. She totally reframed their conflict, reminding them that their greatest power was sticking together against a world that didn't always understand them. And you know what? It worked. Her words hit home. The team moved into the norming stage, and they started to gel. With every basket they scored, they realized just how strong their bodies really were. That motivation fueled them to start winning games, beating teams from India, South Korea, and Laos. They were becoming a real team. So this whole journey, the forming, the storming, the norming, it all led them to the ultimate stage, the Asian Paragames in Jakarta. It was finally time to put their new unity to the ultimate test. And here, we hit the performing stage. This is when all the hard work, all the arguments, all the bonding, it all comes together, and the team just works as one. But what was their real objective? And this is where their story just completely redefined success. Because if you only look at the scoreboard, yeah, they lost every single game. They finished in last place. But that is not the real story. Not even close. Their true victory was getting recognized, building an unbreakable unity, and discovering this profound belief in themselves. Siang's words, they just say it all, don't they?
I still think we are winners. They had achieved something so much more valuable than any medal. They had proven to themselves and to the world exactly what they were capable of.
But what happens after a peak moment like that? You know, when the games are over and the crowds all go home? Well, that brings us to the final, and often overlooked stage of Tuchman's model.
This last stage is called mourning. It's usually a time of mixed feelings, as a team's main purpose is fulfilled. But for the Battambang Roses, their story didn't quite fit the typical model.
See, for them, the competition wasn't the end. It was actually the beginning of a whole new chapter. The bond they had forged through this entire process was just way too strong to break. They weren't just teammates anymore, they were a family. They were sisters.
And Sion's reflection here just captures the true essence of their victory. The trust, the belief, the love, that was the real championship they won. It was a total transformation that built confidence, unity, and an absolutely unbreakable bond.
It leaves us with a final thought to really consider for ourselves. In your own life, maybe at work, in sports, or even just with your family and friends, what team has taken you on a journey like this and, in the end, truly transformed who you are?